is Judith Meyer. I'm from Berlin, and I'm especially passionate about non-European languages and languages outside the usual Romance and Germanic spectrum that a lot of polyglots start out with. I found that these languages are getting too similar in my mind, and basically I threw in the towel and decided, okay, I'm not going to add, say, Portuguese to Italian, Spanish, Latin. I'm just going to go with languages that have no resemblance whatsoever, and that way I will make my life easier. So I work as a computational linguist. I develop programs, and ideally I develop programs and algorithms that deal with language. For example, I was working on a machine translation program. I was working on an AI-based language course. And now I'm actually doing something different. I'm publishing a series of books called Script Hacking, together with Teach Yourself. You can also see the first such book outside at the Teach Yourself stand. So there will be 7 books in this series, and what makes them different is that they're really using the computer in order to identify the best way to learn foreign script. There is an algorithm in it which essentially tells me the best order to learn the letters, the best way to practice the letters, and I might say more about that later, but for now I wanted to share some insights that I have gotten in my pursuit of exotic languages on how to learn those foreign scripts, which are, I think, really an inspiration for a lot of polyglots. A lot of polyglots love the foreign writing systems. They love being able to trace Chinese, Japanese characters, for example, or to just delight in the different looks of foreign characters, foreign letters. But also it is often cited as a reason not to learn a language. People have told me, I'm not learning Arabic because the writing, I'm not learning Chinese because of the writing. And I want to show you that there is no reason to let this different writing system scare you off learning the language that you're passionate about. So how would you go about learning these exotic scripts? Now, the series of script hacking books will be available for 7 different writing systems, but actually I've only mastered a few. That is Chinese, Greek, Arabic, and some Hebrew, some Korean. So for the others, and of course also for the ones I know, I'm working with native speakers. So first, why would you even want to learn a foreign script, especially if the language is not directly on your target list? This is a question I answered for myself when I traveled to Ukraine, and I didn't know any Russian. I hadn't learned any Slavic language by then, and I had no intention of learning Ukrainian. I was going there for an Esperanto conference, so no need for Ukrainian, but I still decided to learn the Cyrillic alphabet. And one of the reasons is because of signs like this. Because if you're walking around a foreign city and you see all the street signs and directions in Cyrillic, or the bus tables all in Cyrillic, if you're looking at public transport, if you're at a bus station and all the buses are labeled in Cyrillic, it can be quite difficult to get by without knowing the local alphabet, even as a tourist. And another reason is that there's simply a very high return on investment if you do learn these foreign writing systems. At least enough to sound out words, not enough to actually speak the language, but just to sound out words is going to be helpful when it comes to reading menus, for example. Can I find someone who does not know, someone who does know Cyrillic. For this exercise, I need someone who does know Cyrillic. Okay, right here in the front row. And there are some in the audience who do not know Cyrillic. Okay, that's good. So could you just read out the names of these pizzas? Okay, I think you'll need a microphone.
So it's wegetariańska, 4 jest syra.
Slowly?
Okay.
One by one.
Okay. So the first one is wegetariańska. The second one, 4 jest syra. So 4 cheeses. The next one, margarita. The next one, salami. Miasnaja. Bulldozer. Carbonara i calzone.
Okay, so there are a few that we don't exactly know what they are, like this bulldozer one, but if you read salami, if you read calzone, if you read even vegetarianskaya, you can guess what they mean. And even if you come across a foreign word like bulldozer and you have no idea what is written, it could be that you can read part of what is written as the ingredients. Or this miasnaja, it comes with mozzarella and salami and bacon. So it really helps you. Of course, you don't understand 100%, but you're getting a lot further. Actually, does anyone want... Okay, I will share one more story of myself, and maybe you also have a story of how knowing a foreign writing system has helped you in your travels. For me, it was really a breakthrough when I went to China in 2004, you know, before the Olympics, before the big tourist waves forced essentially all restaurants to have English translations. And I went to a lot of Chinese restaurants that just had Chinese menus. And my knowledge of Chinese was extremely basic at the time. I only knew very few characters, but fortunately they included things like soup, chicken, beef, vegetable, things like that. So I was able to identify the main categories in the menu, and then I just go, this is what I'm going to eat. But you know, knowing the sections of what I was looking at, whether I was getting a soup or a salad or a dessert, made all the difference. And I felt comfortable picking one of the chicken dishes. It's going to be good. Maybe I'll ask if it's going to be too spicy, but otherwise, just let randomness decide what I'm going to eat today. And it was always very, very good. Does anyone have another story to share of foreign writing systems?
Yeah, my story is also about Chinese. We went to China with my husband a few years ago, and we were traveling by train. And the timetable of Chinese trains looks like 10 times more complicated than the one that Judith showed us. And I managed somehow to know which one is the first class, which one is the second class, which one is the seating, which one is the lying place. And they show on one big table a month ahead. So just standing by this table, you have to know whether it's today or in 2 weeks' time. And they're showing all the trains that are coming. So, but we managed to get by and to find and to buy the tickets to the places we are planning to go, not the similar ones. So we pulled that off. But it's we needed to get into a little bit which one is which. So it helped us a lot. It's a good idea to learn.
Thank you. So if you are convinced, I hope you are, that learning a foreign alphabet is going to be useful, even if you don't have the time to learn the whole language, then let me introduce you to some basic ideas of how I would go about that. So the principles of learning any foreign script, and I'm saying any because it applies both to alphabets and to syllabaries and to character-based, ideogram-based languages. So the first idea is to use pictures. On the left, you see the evolution of Chinese/Japanese characters. On the very top left, it's the original character for the sun. Then in the middle, the character for sun as it evolves, and on the right, the current character for sun. And so on. For the next row is the moon, The row after that is a mountain, and the fourth row shows the evolution of the character I. Why am I showing you the evolution? Because that is very useful when it comes to remembering the characters. Because if you're just looking, say, at the top right character, you would never guess that that is going to be the sun. But if you look a bit into the history of how this character evolved, then you can remember it more easily. So that is one way that you can help remember what you're supposed to learn. And the example on the right, does anyone know what that is? Yes, it's here. Ki. Yes, it's the Japanese syllable ki. And this shows a mnemonic because it has the picture of a key showing you how you might associate that with the actual character for ki. And of course, this is not the real history of how this character came about, not least because English didn't exist then, but it works as a way to remember it. So there's using pictures is always a good idea when it comes to basic elements, simple characters that don't have another element within them. And there are two types of pictures that you might draw on. One is the actual history of the character, and one is a kind of mnemonic, invented history of how this character might fit the meaning that you're trying to assign it, or the pronunciation that you're trying to assign it. Then, when it comes to more complicated characters, you can use logic. In fact, I recommend using logic because I've also come across a book for Chinese learners where each Chinese character, and there were like hundreds of them, was displayed as a kind of drawing of like two people in a cave with some stuff between them, and these drawings tended to resemble each other quite a lot, and you couldn't really remember all the stuff that was between them. And basically, it's a bad idea to use pictures to remember how a character is written if there are a lot of elements, if there are a lot of strokes, and it's much. At least I find it much simpler to use the logic-based approach. So in the first row, does someone remember from last slide what this was? The sun, yes. Yeah, just shout it. I don't want to always pick people from the audience. And the next character was the moon, yes. So we have sun and moon, and together the meaning is bright, yes. So you can kind of guess how this might have worked. Sun and moon together means bright. And on the next row, we have the character for tree and another tree, and together it means forest, yes. Actually, the response was quite fast and clear here. How many of you have learned Chinese or Japanese character? Oh, wow, quite a lot. Okay, so this is one way you can use logic, and I recommend it. Especially for the really complicated characters. And another way is what you see below there. This is Korean vowels. On the left, you have the vowel A, O, U. And on the right, you have the equivalent Ya, Yo, Yu. So I'm not sure if you can see it as people who haven't studied any Korean, I'm assuming, but the commonality is that the simple vowels have just one short line, and then when you get to the ya, yo, yu, they suddenly have two short lines. So this is a way that you don't have to remember another character, you just remember if you see two short lines, it's going to be the ya version with the y in front. And actually, Korean is extremely logical in the way that the letters are built. you have a similar equivalency with the consonants, where you have the basic consonants and then you have the aspirated versions, and the aspirated versions tend to have one extra line compared to the non-aspirated. And then there is a third class of consonants that also sound similar, that are tense consonants, where essentially you have 2 times the basic character. But if you know the basic character, you can essentially remember all the rest very easily. Another recommendation is to make this a game. I'm not sure if you're familiar with cryptograms. Cryptograms, I think in the English-speaking world, it's usually letters that have been replaced by other letters. And you have to figure out which letter corresponds to which letter in a secret message, maybe a quote that is spelled this way. But in Germany, a lot of these cryptograms involve symbols. Like in this case, you have the symbol for sun or a little bird or an umbrella, and they all stand for different letters. And you're supposed to figure out which symbol represents which letter, just based on, well, just guesswork, and maybe based on the hints that you get. So this is one way to make a cryptogram, but one case, and this actually inspired me to write the script hacking series of books, or to develop this method, is that one day I was looking in my local newspaper and they had this kind of cryptogram involving Chinese characters. So, of course, it wasn't real Chinese, it was just one Chinese character replacing each German letter. And if you spend a lot of time and you try to figure out the quote that was written in Chinese characters there, you would essentially have this character is A, and this character is B, and this character is C, and so on and so on. And I was like, if someone really spends like 2 hours trying to figure out this equivalency, why would that person not learn real Chinese? Like, if you're going to spend so much time, the answer should really help you. Should be something that is worthwhile, that you can use. So I thought, what if we did cryptograms like this? War-torn country, and then you get something that you might be able to guess. Afghanistan, yeah. This is Greek. So the gamma is actually like R, like Afghanistan, but you can get it as Afghanistan. And the problem here, I don't want to hear, okay, for the rest of the presentation, I don't want to hear from people who know the script that I'm talking about, because this is a bit of an experiment for those who are trying to learn one. So for those who have not studied the Arabic alphabet, can you guess the one below? I hear a few solutions. This actually proves that you're very, very smart, because I don't think it's possible to know without having some introduction to the Arabic alphabet. The city is San Francisco, and what really throws you off is, okay, I can't see the mouse. Do I have a pointer? Okay, most people would be thrown off by the space that appears to exist within the word Francisco, and also thrown off by the Arabic writing in general. You're not able to figure out exactly where each letter begins and ends. So what I'm trying to say is that you may not be able to jump straight into cryptograms with your favorite foreign alphabet. With Greek, it would work, maybe with Russian, not necessarily with Arabic or with Chinese. So the solution is to go step by step, not like in this picture. I've noticed this in a lot of language courses. It doesn't matter which publisher, but they tend to give you a big list showing all the letters of the alphabet, and maybe some exercise where you're supposed to write them all. And then you can continue to the first lesson. And this is not brain-friendly, as any polyglot would know. If you're supposed to memorize, I don't know, 26 or more foreign characters, and then you're suddenly supposed to know them all and use them to read a text in a foreign language, that's not brain-friendly learning. So you're really supposed to go step by step, learning each character individually even, if possible. And that way, you can really learn a foreign alphabet. So this is an example. And I need people who have not studied Cyrillic. Who here has not studied Cyrillic and would be ready? Yes, okay. Maybe you? Can you just start reading these words?
Mama, Mecca, atom, motor, Maroko, Monaco, karate, Anna, ocean, neon.
Yes. Bravo. Really well done. So, you probably noticed I threw in a few unfamiliar letters. You start out with letters that almost look normal, as in mama, and then you get the Russian R, and you get the Russian N, and it continues like that. This is how you can get used to a foreign alphabet. This is all real Russian, but I threw in extra letters one by one. I started out with just the two letters M and A, and then afterwards you get the T and the O and the K and the R and the N, and eventually it doesn't look so foreign anymore. I mean, if I had started out giving you the last word, neon, I don't think many people could have guessed it. And of course, as you add more letters, the words that you're reading become more and more unfamiliar. But actually, I don't recommend going as fast as this. I think that you should give yourself more time with each letter to really internalize it. So what I just gave you as a Russian reading exercise was way too fast from this perspective. What you really should be doing is you're getting a new letter like I, and then you're really reading a whole lot of different words that can be read with this letter, like in this example. Let's do this as a crowd. Can you all like shout the words that are written? Only those who do not know Cyrillic. The personal names. The first one is Tony. The next one, Nina. Next, Nikita. Next, Naomi. Marina. Kim. Yes. And the countries? America, Iran, Iraq. The capital cities? Tokyo, Quito, Tirana, Cairo. The next Canadian province? Ontario. Food. Curry. And international words? Mathematica and internet. Yes. Obviously, once you know the basic equivalencies, you have to develop a Russian accent, but it already helps to know the equivalencies. And this is the kind of words that I recommend using when you're starting out with a foreign writing system. You don't use the letters to immediately learn, to immediately read like ahlan in Arabic, because there's no guarantee. You cannot check for yourself if what you read is actually ahlan, or is it aklan, or is it akman. There are too many mistakes that you could make, and it is not very rewarding. Whereas being able to read words that, okay, you have a bit of trouble reading them, but afterwards you get, oh, this is banana. Oh, banana. There's a real feeling of success. It is a game. It is like Cryptograms. It allows you to feel good even about a small amount of progress in learning a foreign script. And for this purpose, I recommend using words like these, like personal names, countries, capital cities or other major cities, provinces, states, food items, international words for like sciences, international words for modern inventions like blog and internet and Facebook, international foods like sushi, taxi. There are a lot of international words by now that are used even in unrelated languages like Arabic or like Japanese, and you can use these to create little puzzles for you. Little cryptograms, where you can just try to read them as an exercise for yourself. And ideally, these cryptograms would be graded. They would go from involving just a few letters to introducing more letters and more letters and more letters until you get the really complicated long words. And that is essentially the method that I'm using in these script hacking books. And there is one more trick that I want to recommend to you, and that is this stage, when you actually know all the letters, and still you look at the text and it just kills you. It's a brick wall. You know every single letter, but your eyes just can't perceive it. You can't see. This is J, this is N, this is whatever. You cannot see. And in order to overcome this last barrier to your fluent reading of a foreign language, I recommend doing word search exercises. Actually, not word search, but letter search. So you need a small amount of text, maybe not so much, but just like one sentence, two sentences, a paragraph worth of text, and you try to find the five letter A that are in this text. And this way you're training your eyes to notice the letters in this text by doing a search exercise. So those are my recommendations. If you want to have a pre-made course that involves all of these tricks, like the pictures and the cryptograms and the order of learning one letter at a time and so on, you can get the script hacking courses. But all the tricks that I told you also work for yourself. So if you're learning, say, Bengali and there's no script hacking Bengali yet, then you can apply the same tricks. Just go on Wikipedia, find some international words, or use a dictionary, find some international words that you can practice reading. Try to go from simpler words involving less letters to involving more letters. Do some character search exercises and so on and so on, and most of all, have fun reading. Like these first graders that are just learning the Latin alphabet, and they will go around a store or around a city and just reading out every single brand that they see, and their parents getting exasperated. But this is the kind of joy that you can discover by learning a foreign alphabet, a new alphabet, and suddenly everything becoming clear and readable to you, all the familiar words that you already know. Thank you.
The books that you have there have relatively easy scripts. I mean, I've tried them all, and most of them I got pretty quickly. When can we expect books with more difficult scripts, like Thai, Tibetan, Chinese, Japanese?
Okay, so these are the first books that will come out. Actually, so far only the Arabic one has been printed, and it was rushed for this conference so that you have a chance to look at it. The next one will be Greek, and then Korean, then Russian, then Hebrew, and then after that I have a contract already for 2 more books for Hindi and for Persian. I'm hoping that the books will fare really well. I mean, you can contribute to it. And then I will also be allowed to write these books for Bengali and Thai and so on. In the meantime, you have to develop this method for yourself. I can already tell you that this method will not work for Chinese. I mean, this exact script hacking method, because it's based on letters and reading words composed of several letters. So for Chinese and Japanese, I rather recommend like remembering the kanji and what is it? Chinese, cracking the Chinese puzzles. Really good books that use a similar approach of building on the basic elements and then teaching you all the characters that are based on those.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I have a quick question. As yourself coming from a non-Arabic background and non-Chinese background, which of these two scripts would you find harder to achieve reading fluency in?
Well, I have reading fluency in Chinese. I haven't got it in Arabic, but that is because I have spent a lot less time on Arabic. I don't know. I think that Arabic probably would have been easier. Because it doesn't have so many different characters to remember. You do have the difficulty that the vowels are not written and you essentially have to learn the vocabulary at the same time as the script, but in Chinese also you have to learn the vocabulary at the same time as the script as you're learning these characters. So I think that Arabic would be easier. My passion still goes to Chinese.
I have a question regarding other language that I didn't see here. I have a question regarding decoding the Georgian and Armenian script. It is very different than these scripts. What do you think about them and about finding international words and loan words?
My experience has been that you can always find international words. I mean, for very distant languages that have an aversion to borrowing, you can still find country names or city names. They have to be translated and not completely reinvented. But even words like internet or blog or sushi or taxi, they tend to be the same. Things that have been imported, foreign fruits, for example, like mango is a foreign fruit to a lot of the world, and then the word for mango will be similar to mango and not something completely new.
I was actually wondering, you mentioned just now Arabic, and the lack of vowels was really a huge problem for me. About 7 years ago, I spoke some Arabic conversationally, and because I was never particularly literate, I lost that because I'm no longer in an Arabic-speaking place. And I was wondering if you had anything, and I know you said your Arabic book is the one that's here, but does it include anything extra as far as trying to get those unwritten pieces of the language, because it's just so frustrating to not have those vowels there?
Actually, the Arabic script hacking uses vowels in a limited way. Like whenever there's the vowel it's just it depends. At the beginning, you have all the vowels written, and then you progress to seeing less and less vowels wherever they're obvious. But I think you're asking about learning the language as a whole and remembering the words and staying fluent in conversation. This is something that these books don't even try to cover. I mean, those are really about the script. They're very small, tiny little books that will help you with the script. And afterwards, you're still supposed to use something like Teach Yourself Complete Arabic or Michel Thomas Arabic or so on to learn the actual language.
Hello. I was wondering if you could speak to how you might use this method with an exchange partner or tutor.
Yes, I think that you could ask your partner to help you find these kind of international words and to help you with the pronunciation once you do get it, because it's not as easy as we just try to make it out, just reading out Russian words. The accent was horrible, as any Russian in the room will tell you. So once you know the basic idea of the letters, you have to learn to pronounce them in a native way. And that is something that you can definitely use a tutor for. I'm not sure how many tutors would be aware of international words versus non-international words in the language. I guess if they have a lot of language learning experience themselves, they may also be able to help you with that, to just point out these are international words that we're using. Otherwise, you may also be able to find them online. If you're looking for, say, English words in Russian or international words in Russian, you find a list of these cognates. But also, just go on Wikipedia, go for the article on Tokyo, then use the languages menu on the side and click on Arabic, and you see the Arabic spelling of Tokyo. This always works.
Hello, so I've got a question. Have you ever learned a language where the characters are exactly the same? So for example, I've learned Cantonese now. So if I was to start learning Mandarin, I'd have that overwhelming urge to pronounce the Chinese there, Yaomen Taima. So how do you kind of overcome the urge to pronounce something in the stronger language and pronounce it in the new one that you're learning?
I haven't had this problem. Actually, I've avoided it because when I was studying a bit of Japanese, I focused on listening and speaking only, and I avoided the characters precisely because I didn't want them messing with my Chinese characters that I don't have enough time to keep active. So I assume that it is possible if you use them often enough, just like we're able to read a whole lot of different languages all spelled with the Latin alphabet. But I think that with the characters which require a lot of uptime already to just keep them active in your mind, you may have to invest a lot of time in both of the languages in order not to forget the readings in one or the other language. Of course, they're not completely separate. It's not like they chose the same character to use to mean something completely different, like the Cherokee alphabet, which uses what looks like Latin letters and has a completely different pronunciation for each of them, which really messes with your mind. But I see you can relate down there. I see you nodding. That's good. So I think that you can also draw on the similarities, like whenever you have O, it becomes O, whatever. You can use that just like I used it to learn Dutch from German. You may be able to use the same from Mandarin to Cantonese, or probably the other way around, right? I think the Cantonese ones are closer to classical Chinese, and then you'd be best learning the Cantonese pronunciation of the characters first and then derive the Mandarin one. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much for the presentation, very interesting. It's not a question, it's just a comment. As a student of Thai, I once asked my a Thai teacher an English teacher to Thai students what her Thai students found hardest about learning English. I was expecting her to say something like the way the verbs decline and singular plurals or the tense system, but in fact she said they struggle most with the Roman alphabet.
Yeah, especially as English, I can totally see that. Maybe if it was Esperanto, they would find it easier to grasp the Latin alphabet. But I think most languages written in a foreign alphabet are actually relatively phonetic, at least better than English in terms of spelling, except Tibetan, which is a complete nutcase. So I think you're actually lucky as students learning a foreign writing system that is going to be easier than Thais learning English.
Hi, thanks for your talk. I had a question about Greek and Russian scripts that you might be doing that have cursive variations, and whether you're going to teach those in addition to block letters, or what your plans are for that.
Yes, these books have an extra chapter on cursive. So it's not immediate in the book, but if you want to learn it, then you can. At the at the back of the book there's an extra chapter on these, along with exercises and so on. I'm not sure of the situation in Russia, I haven't researched it yet, but in Greece, for example, the cursive writing is going out of style, just like in America, cursive writing is kind of going out of style, but you still, it's still useful to know it, because people are inventing this kind of semi-cursive writing, I guess, where they connect the typed letters. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but most people writing English these days, they don't use the cursive letters as taught at school, and they don't use block letters either, but they're kind of like connecting them up a little bit. This is essentially the state of Greek cursive writing these days. Some people still use the full cursive as it's taught at school, but because of the computers, the actual writing that you're going to find is probably closer to typed Greek letters than to the original cursive alphabet. I'm not sure about Russian, but anyway, if you want to learn it, you can learn it with the book. And also the Russian book will have an extra chapter on letters that you need for Serbian, Bulgarian, Kazakh, and so on. So you can use the same book.
Hi, I have a similar question about the Hebrew script, because the written Hebrew, I mean, when you write it by hand, it's totally different to what you see in a printed version. Which part does the book cover, both, or?
Yes, it also covers both. Actually, I haven't started writing it yet. This is just a mock-up that you see on the screen, but I will be starting on it next month, and I think, yes, we will definitely cover both versions.
Okay, thanks.
And also in the book, I try to give you real-world examples, so pictures of street signs, or shop signs, of cafe menus written in cursive writing and so on, so that you can actually practice with real-world examples.
Hi Judith, thank you so much for your talk. I find it extremely difficult to learn how to write. I mean, the recent alphabet I learned was the Cyrillic, and I found it really relieving, because before I was learning the Hebrew and the Persian alphabet, so the Cyrillic felt like really vacation in comparison to that. I've always been struggling with the writing, especially with the handwriting, and it frustrates me when I try to write in Hebrew or Arabic, even through WhatsApp or something. I might succeed to read what people write to me, but I'm really unable to answer them. So if you have any recommendations for that, would be great. Thank you.
Well, on WhatsApp, I imagine you're not writing by hand. You're just using a keyboard to type the letters.
Using a keyboard makes it easier, of course, but yeah, when I try to write with hand, I'm totally lost. Even with Cyrillic, I cannot do it. At least I can write Cyrillic with WhatsApp, but still. So if you have any recommendations, especially for the Arabic and Hebrew writing, that would be helpful.
Yes, I think that handwriting is something that you have to practice, just like you practiced it for the Latin alphabet at school. It took some time till you were able to write all the letters as they should be written. And I think that it's also a matter of doing that regularly, at least for the first 6 months, the first year or so, so that it doesn't go in and out of your brain. Actually, I heard studies that in China, some young people are now forgetting how to write Chinese characters. Not all of them, but just the ones that they don't tend to write. It's really a matter of keeping it active and using the writing regularly and writing it by hand if you want to be able to write it by hand. If you don't use it, you lose the skill. But for the computer, I can recommend. Well, I've seen a lot of polyglots that have installed a ridiculous number of keyboards on their computers. Raise your hand if you're one of those. Yes, or on the phones as well. On the phones, I don't really have a solution, but for the computer, I actually created a series of keyboards that you can use to type more or less phonetically, or in the case of Arabic, more or less as the romanization would show you. So if you have like if you type a small s, you get the scene, and then if you type the capital S, you get sad, and so on. So this way you don't have to memorize a different keyboard layout. I find memorizing the keyboard layout to be the hardest part really of typing a foreign language, because I don't use the foreign languages often enough. I don't type them often enough to remember where the letters are, and then it takes forever to just find them. And I don't have enough room on my keyboard for all the stickers that I would like to put. So I see you relate to the problem. So what I've done is really for all the languages, for Greek, for Russian, for Arabic, for Hebrew, I have created essentially phonetic keyboards with a few adjustments for letters that don't exist. Like the Greek letter theta, I've put it on the J key. That's just one thing you have to remember. You don't have to remember the whole keyboard layout. And that way, even if I only type the language once a month, I can still type it comfortably and actually quite fast.
That sounds like a wonderful system. Is it available? Can you make it available, what you've done?
Yeah, I can share it with you. The problem is that it's all based on the German keyboard, so you might find it... It's okay, for the majority of letters it should be fine, but for example the Z is in the place of the Y, and yeah, the punctuation may be in a place you don't expect it. But I can also show you how to create these keyboards, because it doesn't actually take much time, maybe 2 hours or so, to create your own keyboard layout.
Okay. Thank you very much, Judith.
Thank you.
So, wonderful, thank you.